All right, welcome to the Carl Jackson Show podcast. This is your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. Obviously, if you're watching right now, you can probably see that we don't completely have the camera situation under control, but hopefully this video is good enough to, just recording right off of my Mac here, that it'll be somewhat visibly pleasing to you. But I wanted to make sure that I weighed in. I got to get out of here relatively quickly this morning to tape for Salem News Channel tonight, but I wanted to make sure that I weighed in on Ron DeSantis dropping out. Obviously, this is a huge deal. This is a big deal. He didn't get the results that he wanted from Iowa, and so it seemed as though the momentum just wasn't on his side. He really needed some momentum coming out of Iowa. Without that momentum, you heard Nikki Haley come out out from Iowa and say this is now a two-man race. She was absolutely wrong. She was absolutely lying. But being able to capitalize on that narrative and having all the donor money that she has, and then in Trump having all the supporters that he had, the path for Ron DeSantis was getting increasingly difficult. I'm one who said I absolutely love DeSantis. I hate that people have knocked him so hard. I love Trump too. I looked at the pros and cons of both candidates. I know people are like, you're either for DeSantis or you're either for Trump. And long term, I'm like, I could see how DeSantis would do more for the conservative movement. It's not going to happen. And so we have to move on. And listen, Donald Trump is the tool and the vessel that we can use to make sure that we get some policy agenda accomplished. But we're going to make sure we're going to have to make sure that we keep Donald Trump accountable on policy, because we all know that he has a backbone of steel. And so that is a positive. But just real quick, let me mention some things that I don't think a lot of people have considered when it comes to Ron DeSantis. All right. And I believe that Ron DeSantis may be too conservative. Now, hear me out here. And I say this as one who would have 100% backed Ron DeSantis were he the nominee. All right. But considering how secular, in my opinion, both the Republican Party and even the conservative movement has become, I think Ron DeSantis is almost too conservative for the Republican Party as it exists today. I'll say this. This isn't a knock on him. I think this is an indictment on the conservative movement that has increasingly become part of the uniparty. But also, when it comes to ideologically, we're talking using some of the same platitudes, some of the same identity politics issues as the left is. I mean, you hear Nikki Haley use identity politics. You hear Nancy Mace use identity politics. And so this is something, some of these left-wing identity politic issues are seeping in to the conservative movement as well. And so this is something that we have to be mindful of. But I will also say this, and I've always shared this. Ron DeSantis, here's where I get upset with so many people bashing him. When it comes to getting stuff done, I don't think there's any better conservative in the entire country better than Ron DeSantis on getting conservative agendas advanced. The problem is, and the problem has always been for Governor Ron DeSantis, is he was a horrible campaigner. And that was true in Florida as well. For those of you that don't live out here, even his most ardent supporters, if you didn't witness it, he was just a horrible campaigner. The first go round, he basically campaigned on Fox News. He didn't do much media, local media, when he was running against Andrew Gillum. And so that's why when he came out of the gate so conservative, and listen, I knew that he was part of the Freedom Caucus and co-founder, I believe, of the Freedom Caucus and all that kind of stuff. But I was like, what is he doing? This guy doesn't seem like he wants to win. No, he was just a horrible campaigner. But when he got in and when he started governing, he pushed the party to the right. The state legislature, he pushed them to the right. He forced issues that I was just like, oh my God, this guy is a juggernaut when it comes to getting stuff done. That's what I wanted to see for the country if he were to get the nomination, but people just aren't having it. I love the way that he handled COVID. For whatever reason, people have just decided, hey, listen, man, COVID isn't the issue. It's the borders right now. It's the economy. So sadly, I think a lot of people that should frankly be in prison and in front of a firing squad aren't going to get. We're not going to see the justice that we want to see from the COVID lockdowns. Is what I'm trying to say. But having said all that, these are things that that DeSantis had to compete against. One, too conservative in an era where I think the party is becoming increasingly secular. You had a lot of Democrat crossovers. Man, another big issue. So you had a party that's becoming and increasingly secular, in my opinion. And when it comes to DeSantis's campaigning, all right, when it comes to his campaigning, you can't just have a ground game. You have to have an air game. What do you mean by the air game? Social media. Doing a lot of interviews, so on, etc. He admitted himself that he didn't do enough interviews at the beginning of his campaign, which was a huge mistake, because how did he build his popularity? He built his popularity not just by governing conservatively, but by tearing down left-wing media and mainstream media when they tried to get him on these gotcha questions. And so for his campaign to decide from the get-go to abandon that mission, that was just dumb. I don't know who was advising the man. That was just dumb, dumb, dumb. And then let's not forget the elephant in the room. One of the things that DeSantis was running against that I always thought, listen, I thought that if DeSantis could get a one-on-one, that he will probably become the nominee. That simply didn't happen. And I think, again, I blame that in part on his campaign, the way that he launched, the way that he waited so long to jump into the race once everybody knew he was getting into the race, allowing the Tim Scotts, allowing the Nikki Haley's, who's still in the race now, allowing the Vivek Ramaswamy's, and all these people to get in and divide his attention. So once that happened, it was he made the race, or his campaign did. Well, you got to blame him. More difficult for himself. And again, I say this as a guy that absolutely loves DeSantis. I can't stand to see the way the right-wing media has attempted to destroy this man in order to lift up Donald Trump. And I say that as somebody who loves Donald Trump too, but I look at it in this way. When you go back to Barack Obama's election in 2010, what happened in 2010? The Democrats lost every race from, you've heard it before, from the legislature in D.C. all the way down to dog catcher across the country. He destroyed the next generation, if you will, of Democrats. And that's why you have all these left-wing loonies in the Democrat Party today. That's what I don't want to see happen to the conservative movement. That's what I don't want to see happen. You say you want to make America great again. You're not going to make America great again with one Trump, what do you call that? Tenure, another 4 years. All right. If he is to get elected. All right. And frankly, I don't want to see Kristi Noem. I know a lot of people love Kristi Noem. I don't. There were things that I favored about Kristi Noem. After reading some things, finding out some things about her, finding out her Liberty score before she became the governor. I forget which Dakota. Forgive me right now. No, she's just a little too liberal. And as a matter of fact, it was her legislature that pushed her to be more forceful down the COVID lockdowns. I don't want to see her as VP. I don't want to see Nikki Haley as VP. I want to see some true conservatives. So just real quick too, Ron DeSantis was just running up against justice. People wanted justice for Donald Trump and the lawfare and the prosecution. I don't think DeSantis did an effective job of talking about J6. And if you're going to get the base, and you know the Trump supporters are the most animated, why you wouldn't talk about that, I simply don't know. You could easily say that, hey, listen, I don't agree with what some of the protesters did, and maybe some of them maybe some of them deserve to be punished. I think the punishments are excessive, and I think far more innocent people were there that day that don't deserve to be prosecuted or hunted down by the FBI. And so we're going to eradicate that problem, and anybody that was treated unfairly and unjustly of those J6 protesters, we're going to release them day one. Boom, simple, done. All right. Why he never did that? Why his campaign may have advised again? I don't know. Just idiotic. Just stupid. You have to look at the crises as they exist, and and you have to take those on. And again, I offer this criticism simply because I'm a man that I want to see DeSantis run again. I want to see him in 2028 if we still have a country. I'm not convinced that we'll have a country. It's got to be all hands on deck. I don't think by any means of the imagination will we have a landslide victory in 2024. If indeed we do win, it's going to have to be all hands on deck. And don't let anyone tell you differently. Don't let anyone say, if Trump is the nominee, we're going to run away with this thing. Even if Nikki Haley is the nominee, they're going to be running up against the Democrat machine, not necessarily just a Biden. And Democrats will do anything it takes to win, including throwing Biden over the bus if they need to, and putting in another, a more favorable candidate like a Gavin Newsom or something to that effect. But again, a couple of points just real quick. I mentioned that DeSantis can be too conservative for some, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because I think he's a standard bearer, and I do believe that when times get tougher, and I think they will, frankly, then people will look to his governance in Florida again and say, man, you know what, we maybe we need to go with that guy in the future. Democrat crossovers. You got to remember, Trump swayed a lot of people to come into the Democrat Party that weren't there before. There's pros and cons about that. Now you get people that sometimes may be not as informed and not as informed in the party policy wise, but they do know. I mean, they're voting their pocketbooks. They're voting this. They're voting. Good Lord, I'm getting a car right now that I got to take, but I'll come back to it. All right, they're voting their pocketbooks. They see what's going on with J6 and stuff like that. They've got an emotional tie to Donald Trump, and they're not letting go of him. So those are just some things to consider real quickly about DeSantis. So maybe too conservative right now, but when things get tough, people are going to want a DeSantis. The Democrat crossovers, the issue that he's too boring. I don't listen. This is one that frustrates me, because I think that we're in search of an entertainer. It's not a knock on Trump at all. I just think since Barack Obama, I think the whole political atmosphere, people want to be entertained, and I just think that's not the greatest thing for politics, because ultimately I don't want to think about my president every day, but we live in a society now where you almost have to. It's pretty insane. All right, but that's where we are, and honestly, part of it, you have to realize when you come into politics, part of it is going to be, you're going to have to be entertaining. You're going to have to grab people. That's why Vivek Ramaswamy did so well. That's why for the period of time that he was in the race, I think that's why Nikki Haley to a point has sustained. I don't believe a word that comes out of her mouth. I don't believe she's a person of conviction, but saying this, she's a great retail politician. I got to give it to her. I hate to give that to her, but I absolutely do. All right, so guys, and I could go on and on about DeSantis' record and what he accomplished in Florida, but I won't, simply because I don't have time. I'll save that for another day and perhaps another political season. Who knows? But anyway, having said that, I'm going to leave you with this video of Governor DeSantis offering his announcement that he's bowing out of the race and endorsing Trump. Guys, please make sure you support my sponsor, MyPillow.com. Mike Lindell, MyPillow employees, want to thank my listeners for all your continued support. To thank you, they're having an overstock clearance sale right now for the best prices ever when you use the promo code CARL, that is CARL, and you get free shipping on your entire order. Get 50% off the MyPillow 2.0 and the brand new flannel sheets that just arrived and won't last long. Get 6-pack towel sets for only $29.98 and take advantage of the free shipping on larger items like mattresses and mattress toppers, 100% made in the USA, on sale for as low as $99.99. Everything is on sale, from the brand new kitchen towels that have the same technology as the bath towels that actually absorb, dog beds, blankets, couch pillows, and so much more. Again, to get the best specials ever, go to mypillow.com and use promo code CARL, that is CARL, or give them a call at 800-858-0263. That is 800-858, I'm looking at the wrong camera again, 0263, and get free shipping on your entire order while supplies last. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast wherever you go to get the podcast, and please share it. The Carl Jackson Show, wherever you go on social media. We're on X, we're on Instagram, True Social, Getter, wherever I am on social media at The Carl Jackson Show. Until next time, don't grow weary doing good. We're going to leave you with Ron DeSantis' announcement of him bowing out of the race and endorsing former President Donald Trump.
Greetings from Florida. The warmth of being home is a reminder why I've chosen public service. From joining the United States Navy and serving in Iraq, to representing the people in the U.S. Congress, and now serving as governor of Florida. And it reminds me why I decided to run for president, to fight for those who have been forgotten in this country. This is America's time for choosing. We can choose to allow a border invasion, or we can choose to stop it. We can choose reckless borrowing and spending, or we can choose to limit government and lower inflation. We can choose political indoctrination, or we can choose classical education. These choices are symptoms of the underlying struggle to ensure that constitutional government can endure and that Western civilization can survive. And we launched this campaign to bring accountability to government, regain sovereignty at our border, and restore sanity to our society. We cannot succeed as a country if we allow our nation to be invaded, our currency to be debased, our cities to crumble, and our kids to be indoctrinated. The DC elites who facilitated this mess do not care about you, and they do not work for you. They work for themselves. They seek to accumulate power at your expense to pursue an agenda that is harmful to the American people. Citizens do not serve politicians. It is the duty of politicians to serve you. Talk is cheap. Actions speak louder than words. Reversing the decline of this nation requires leadership that delivers big results for the people we are elected to serve. I have a record of leading with conviction, championing an agenda marked by bold colors, delivering on my promises, and defeating the people who are responsible for our nation's decline. That is the type of leadership we need for all of America. Now, over the past many months, Casey and I have traveled across the country to deliver a message of hope that decline is a choice and that we can, in fact, succeed again as a nation. Nobody worked harder, and we left it all out on the field. Now, following our second place finish in Iowa, we've prayed and deliberated on the way forward. If there was anything I could do to produce a favorable outcome, more campaign stops, more interviews, I would do it. But I can't ask our supporters to volunteer their time and donate their resources if we don't have a clear path to victory. Accordingly, I am today suspending my campaign. I'm proud to have delivered on 100% of my promises, and I will not stop now. It's clear to me that a majority of Republican primary voters want to give Donald Trump another chance. They watch his presidency get stymied by relentless resistance, and they see Democrats using lawfare this day to attack him. Well, I've had disagreements with Donald Trump, such as on the coronavirus pandemic and his elevation of Anthony Fauci. Trump is superior to the current incumbent, Joe Biden. That is clear. I signed a pledge to support the Republican nominee, and I will honor that pledge. He has my endorsement because we can't go back to the old Republican guard of yesteryear, a repackaged form of warmed-over corporatism that Nikki Haley represents. The days of putting Americans last, of kowtowing to large corporations, of caving to woke ideology are over. I thank all of our passionate supporters who have stood by us through it all. That we had people volunteer to come to Iowa in the middle of a blizzard to knock on doors and make phone calls touched us dearly. No candidate had more thrown at him, but no candidate had so many committed volunteers and staff. Finally, I want to thank my wife, Casey, and our kids, Madison, Mason, and Mamie. Casey's gone far above and beyond in her support for our campaign and for our cause. She's not only a great wife and mother, she's a great American who cares deeply about the future of the country that our kids will inherit. Our kids have seen and done a lot on the trail, from playing on the famed Field of Dreams baseball site in Iowa to making their first snowman in New Hampshire. They are one of the reasons we fight so hard for what we believe in. Winston Churchill once remarked that success is not final, failure is not fatal, it is the courage to continue that counts. While this campaign has ended, the mission continues. Down here in Florida, we will continue to show the country how to lead. Thank you, and God bless.